BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we've got a special guest. We've got Breckenridge head football coach Casey Pearce of what has been thus far a shockingly good Breckenridge football team at 2-0.
No question. I mean, you look at the start that they've gotten off to, a 42-13 win over a solid Jacksboro team, followed by a shocking 35-8 beatdown of a Childress team that a lot of people were putting near the top of that region there in 382. On the road, just a tremendous start for this Breckenridge team. And they've got another big game this week coming up where they'll be hosting Cisco. So it's going to be a lot of fun talking to Coach Pearce about the start this team's off to. And really, I think just about, some of the things that he thinks this team is capable of, because just from what they've shown so far, this looks like a really, really good Breckenridge team. It's going to be fun to watch them kind of build on what they've done to this point, because like you said, I think both you and I expected Breckenridge to be better this year and expected them to be a very solid playoff team in that district. But right now they're looking like maybe one of the teams to beat in that league, which is not something we probably foresaw.
Yeah, right now they're looking like that. And when we both had them in the playoffs, we both picked them for playoff spots. But right now, wow. They're shocking the area right now. They have played lights out defensively and offensively, and they've got that ground game going, which I want to talk to Coach about. Before we jump in to this week's show, we do need to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stanford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. And with that, before we bring on Coach Pearce, let's go over some of the top ball games that we had last week. And it's tough not to speak about Abilene and Cooper first. It's just such a big matchup and such a huge rivalry. Abilene coming up out on top 14-10, and you were on hand for that one, Dan.
Yeah, and honestly, it was a really entertaining, very good defensive football game. Both teams had their moments offensively, but it was really the defenses that kind of stole the show. And both teams, I thought, gave pretty gritty, strong performances. Both the effort was there for both teams. A very competitive game. Cooper on the opening possession went and drove right down the field, 74 yards in about 9 plays. Looked really good offensively, and from that point forward, everything was tough for them. They had a couple of field goal attempts the rest of the way, made one of those two. So Cooper led at 7-0 early in the game, heading into the second quarter, and then later led 10-7. But both times Abilene High had an answer, and they put together a couple of touchdown drives, and that's all it took, just because of the way that the Abilene High defense played. But I thought both teams played really well, played really hard. And I think showed some signs of life that maybe in their first games were lacking a little bit on the offensive side. So I think that this was one of those games, you hear it a lot, it'll make both teams better. I think the competition was good. I think this was a real good game for both teams, and Abilene High really, I thought, showed some grit and some guttiness to pull that one out. But it was a fun game. That's kind of what you hope to see out of a series like that, is a good, competitive, well played game, and this was definitely that.
All right, I was up in Stanford for our Big Country Preps game of the week, where the Bulldogs were playing host to Haskell, and Stanford came away with a 28-9 win. We were expecting a close ball game, a really a physical ball game, and a great ball game, really. But the weather conditions, I mean, that field had been hit so hard by rain, it just really, the conditions were not conducive to having a quote unquote great football game. We came away with 15 penalties. We had 9 fumbles. There were leg cramps all over the place. I mean, guys were just toward the end of that ball game, guys were just dropping like flies with leg cramps, and it was just one of those nights. There was really nothing much that you could do about it. The ball was slippery, the field was slippery, and it ended up being a sloppy game. But that's what happens when you're playing in those conditions. It's just the way it is. But I was still impressed with a couple of things. I thought that Stanford defensively did a really good job on Marquise Johnson. He was the Big Country rushing leader coming into that ball game, and they held him to about 60 yards total, which is that's doing a pretty good job. They kept him bottled up. One thing that impressed me about Haskell is despite the fact that they spent most of the night down, they did a very good job of turning momentum. Haskell had a number of plays where they forced a turnover here and there to turn momentum. Otherwise, the game could have really gotten ugly. But Haskell showed some heart and turned the game around a couple of times, momentum wise, to stay competitive. But other than that, it was a sloppy night.
Yeah, and this was a bad game, or a bad week rather, for fields with natural grass. I know that Holly actually moved their game over to Wiley to play on turf, so we got hit with so much rain. I'm sure if you were playing on natural grass this week, it was going to be pretty sloppy just because of the conditions. So I could see how uh, that could definitely impact games, and it did certainly that Stanford game. But yeah, you always, I know that when we set that big country game of the week, you want to see both teams at their at their absolute best on optimal field conditions, and unfortunately we didn't get that this week, but it's still one that I think will help both those teams.
All right, elsewhere in the area, one big game, a huge ball game, and we consider this for game of the week. Cisco went down to Wall and came away with an 18-14 win. There were only 375 yards in total offense between the two teams. Again, I'm sure that was played on a wet field. The conditions down there weren't the best, but Cisco just did a great job defensively. Held Wall to 199 yards. That's a couple of very physical, very good football teams that play good defense, and it just came down to, who wanted it more. I guess during the fourth quarter, Cisco coming away with a huge win.
Yeah, I think this was a huge win for them because we've seen Cisco. They've obviously played Wall several times in the past several years, and played Jim Ned and some others when they've played up quite a bit. And one thing we've seen in some of those games was where the numbers eventually just got the numbers difference kind of got to Cisco late in games, and they just kind of ran out of gas. So I think it was really impressive that they were able to finish off a win over a Wall team that does have a little bit a few more players on their roster. So I think this is a big deal for Cisco. I mean, obviously the yardage totals weren't there. Both defenses are very, very good. So you knew it was going to be kind of a slugfest, and it was. But for Cisco to do what they need to do offensively to get out of there with a win and to really outlast Wall, I think says a lot about what Cisco's got going this year. And they get another challenge this week against Breckenridge. And we'll obviously be talking to Coach Pearce here in a little bit. But Cisco's always going to load up that non-district schedule, and to hold up as well as they did in that one, I think is a good sign.
All right, moving on elsewhere in Class 4A. This you want to talk about the game of the week. This game is insane. Stephenville goes to Everman, Class 5A Everman, and comes away with a win. That we knew it was going to be tough. Everman's a quality football team with a great running game, and they had Stephenville down. Stephenville rallied to top them 62-61, winning on the last play of the game, last play in regulation, with Ryder Lambert hitting Caden Henderson with a 16-yard scoring pass as time expired. 62-61. Wow.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's what Stephenville's offense has done to start the season, super impressive. They've given up over 100 points in the first 2 weeks of the season, and they're undefeated at 2-0 right now, which tells you how well that offense is playing. I think their defense is going to have to obviously clean some things up as they keep going if they want to have the type of run they're hoping to have. But offensively, I mean, they're already there. You mentioned what Ryder Lambert did passing the ball, over 250 yards, 4 touchdowns. And the one thing that I've been really impressed with through the first 2 weeks is how well they've run the ball. Tate Maruska had a huge game, almost 300 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, and he was coming off a big game last week against Midlothian Heritage. So the fact that they're running the ball as well as they are, they're going to be able to pass the ball with Ryder Lambert and some of the young receivers they've got. But the fact that they're running the ball that well, I think, is a good sign. If they can get that defense, clean some of those things cleaned up, this is going to be a dangerous team again. And I think they're showing it right now.
All right, elsewhere in the area, one of the biggest matchups that we had last week, Holly playing host to Lubbock Roosevelt, the 3A Power. Holly just dumped them 33-0, and all 33 of those points came in the first half. Holly came away with 390 yards in total offense. This is a team that's just got weapons all over the place. This is not your typical Class 2A D1 team by any stretch. This
I think
very good 2A D1 team.
No question. They played up each of the first 2 weeks. Obviously, we're playing an undermanned Jim Ned team just with some of the injuries they had, but they really handled them well. And then played a Roosevelt team that a lot of people think very highly of, and shut them out. And when you're up on 33-0 at halftime on a team like that, I think it speaks to exactly what you just said. You're talking about a very, very good 2A D1 football team. So far, I mean, Holly's been as advertised. They've looked really, really good. And I think there's no reason to think that won't continue. But this team is going to be a fun one to follow all year long. This is a team that's motivated to get back to where they were last year at the state championship game, and I wouldn't put it past them. This is a very, very good Hawley football team.
Upset of the week, at least according to the computer, the biggest upset of the week last week occurred down in Winters, or actually it occurred down in El Dorado, I should say, where Winters came away with an 18-12 win over El Dorado on the road. And according to the computer power ratings, Winters went into that ball game as a 45-point dog and won the ball game. And
Yeah.
won it with a 25-yard touchdown pass from Chris Martinez to Aiden Bryant at the back of the end zone. And that throw and catch ran on Twitter was a heck of a play.
No, no question. Yeah, the rolling to his left makes a throw to the end zone. Kid makes a great catch right on the sideline for the touchdown. So, a huge win for them. And I think one thing that this tells us is that Cross Plains is pretty darn good, because Cross Plains obviously handled Winters in week 1, before going to 2-0 this week. But Winters to bounce back from that loss and to beat a good El Dorado team, very solid El Dorado team in overtime. I think that was a big win for what they're trying to do. I think that this is a team that really wants to compete for a playoff spot, and this is these are the types of games they're going to have to find ways to win if they hope to do that. So this was a big step for them, and what a fun finish! I know you posted the video to that final play on Twitter. And if you haven't seen that, go check it out, because it's an awesome play. But what a fun finish. And you could just kind of see the excitement on the sideline from the Winters coaches. I think that this was one that this young team needed. I think this will be big for their confidence going forward.
All right. With that, we're going to jump up to Class 5A, Dan. Thursday night, the Wiley Bulldogs went up to Lubbock. They faced Monterey on the road and came away with an impressive 30-0 win at Lowry Field.
Yeah, backed up that really good win at Brownwood with another impressive victory over Monterey, shutting out the Plainsmen. Another really big offensive game for them. I mean, they had a 470 yards of offense, ran for 232. I think you're starting to see that this team's got something. They've got a very strong running game led by Landry Carlton, who's done a really good job at the running back position. KJ Long's been very solid at the quarterback position. They were able to throw for 238 yards and a couple of touchdowns this week. So they're doing some really nice things offensively. And anytime you go on the road and get a shutout, you've done something. You're doing well defensively. So I think that Wiley's got a lot going for it. They're going to get a big test this week with Lubbock Cooper coming to town, which that should be a fun game. That'll be a big one for this Wiley team, and kind of to see where they stand as far as kind of a measuring stick. But right now, I think if you're a Wiley fan or a member of that team, you got to be feeling pretty good about the way they've played to this point. And the neat thing there is talking to Coach Clay Martin. He says they've still got a lot of things they can clean up. So I think the potential for this team's very high because they're able to run the football, they're playing defense, and when you can do those two things, that's a pretty good recipe for success.
One other ball game I want to mention, Brownwood went down to Marble Falls, and this is a good Marble Falls team that they were facing. Brownwood was an underdog, according to the computer. They go down there and they just lay a whooping on Marble Falls, 55-16. Now, this is the same Brownwood team that had a narrow loss to this very good Wiley team in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think the jury's still out on Brownwood. They might end up being a very good football team. They came across as one Friday night, out gaining Marble Falls 402-201.
Yeah, and that was my impression, seeing them play against Wiley, was that both of those were good football teams and would have a lot of success ahead of them. But I did not expect. I almost picked Brownwood. I ended up second guessing myself and going with Marble Falls. I wish I had not.
Me too.
Me
too.
But so I was surprised by that outcome. But I think it does speak to the talent that team has on the offense. That Icall had a great second game at the quarterback position. Conlon Anderson ran for 3 touchdowns. They really got things going offensively and defensively. I mean, to hold that Marble Falls offense to 16 points, some of which came in garbage time, tells you they're doing some really nice things defensively as well. But I know that after that game, Coach Burnett felt like they should have won. They should have beaten Wiley at home, and they were disappointed that they didn't. So I think you kind of saw some of that frustration taken out on Marble Falls. But I do think that game shows what Brownwood can do. At its best. This is going to be a good Brownwood team, and I'm excited to see what they can do, because I think that, kind of out of Region 2 and out of that district they've been in, I think they've got an opportunity to do some special things, and I think that this game would certainly kind of, be evidence for that.
All right. And with that, before we bring on Casey Pearce, the head football coach of Breckenridge, we need to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts throughout the school year. Also, for the Love of the Game Broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and 98.5 FM KWBY out of Ranger. That is for the Love of the Game Broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant up at Bayer Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, new or used, give Rob a shout. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. Call him at 254-559-2266. That's Rob Durham at Bayer Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. And with that, Dan, it is time to bring on Coach Casey Pearce, whose Breckenridge Buckaroos dominated Jacksboro in week one. They went up to Childress, dominated them last week, and they are off to a flying start. This is about as good as we've seen Breckenridge look after 2 weeks in a long, long time.
Yeah, and the Childress win in particular, that was an eye opener for me because I thought with the way they played in week one, they might have a chance to maybe win that one. I did not see them winning, the way they did, where they really were dominant over a good Childress football team. So I think that bodes very well for what Breckenridge has and is trying to do this year. So I'm excited to talk to Coach Pearce about what he thinks of this team. I think that obviously you and I both think very highly of it, particularly after those first two games. So. It's going to be fun talking to Coach Pearce about it, and it looks like he is just about ready to join us. So let's go ahead and get him on.
And joining us now via Zoom, Breckenridge head football coach Casey Pearce. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Coach, you guys are off to a great start. Back-to-back impressive wins over good football teams from Jacksboro and Childress. Talk about what the keys have been thus far through these first 2 weeks.
I think our kids enjoy coming to work every day. They show up excited about practice and they like working with each other, and that locker room has a good vibe to it. And, our coaching staff, I think, has initiated all that through the course of the summer and just the things that they do with their position players. And so that's a testament to those two groups, and we're going to enjoy it.
Coach Evan and I have talked before the season and even earlier in this podcast that he and I both thought that this team would be improved this year, perhaps dramatically so. But I think y'all's start has probably even surprised us to a little bit. I was just wondering, what were the internal expectations for this team going into the season? Just how good did y'all kind of think they could be when y'all were getting going?
So this is year 3 of these kids being around Coach Pearce and these other coaches on this staff, and I think they understand the expectations that we have daily. Biggest thing that we try to do daily is see good and bad and correct the bad and give those kids a sense of accomplishment every day. They've got to have successes every day for us to turn it into a program success or a team success. And I think that's done through our strength and conditioning program, and then just the way that we go about our work. And it's boys and girls alike. And we're seeing that change across the board in our program, and that's huge. Says a lot about this coaching staff and about how the kids have bought into the way we do things.
Coach, before the season started, when we did our preview, I spoke with you, and we did talk about your running game, especially with the Lawson kid, and how important it was going to be if you could just, get that going, to complement your passing game. And thus far, we're seeing it. The running game has really been there. Lawson has been playing well. Can you talk a little bit about that element of your game and how big the impact has been?
I think our philosophy offensively and defensively complement one another. We want to be physical, and we want to have a presence at the line of scrimmage with our big kids and how we try to approach things. And I think our running game is showing that we can distribute the ball to several backs and have confidence in them to be able to push the football vertically up the field. And our offensive line has some continuity this year that we've not seen in the past 2 seasons. And I think that's just part of growing this philosophy in this program.
And that actually kind of carries me into the next question. You mentioned continuity. How much does it help now to have a multi-year starter at the quarterback position with Chase and with some of the things that he's maybe more comfortable with now than he was last year?
Absolutely. He's grown, he's matured, and mentally he's at the top of the food chain as far as understanding what we're trying to do. I think he's got some intangibles because he's got foot speed, but he's got some elusiveness when he's got the ball in his hand. And he can extend plays and create some things in the throwing game that we not necessarily have had here in the last 3 years. And I think the biggest thing is his comfort level with what he's hearing and being coached.
Coach, after these wins over Jacksboro and Childress, as well as you played, I'm guessing Breckenridge has just been set on its ear. I'm guessing the community's very excited. I'm guessing you're hearing a lot of rumblings around town when you go to the grocery store. Can you talk a little bit about that? The community
Yeah,
excitement on campus too.
That's the way it should be. We should have some excitement in starting the school year with these successes with our football program and our volleyball program. It's trending itself to a great start and a great opportunity for this school district to have a great year from top to bottom. But the things you hear out in public, that's exciting to hear, but we've also got to take it with a grain of salt, and as Coach Saban would say, not eat the rat poison, and not get too high on the positives and not get too low in the negatives. We've got to worry about us and do the things it takes to do it daily, show some consistency. But the biggest thing is that confidence is contagious, and the lack of it is also contagious. And right now we've got some confidence in this football team and also with this community, and we need to ride it as long as we can ride it.
And that kind of also takes me to the next question is obviously y'all are very process oriented. I mean, how do you kind of balance the process with some of these things these kids are hearing and just making sure they don't get too high and don't kind of, start taking some of that stuff?
I've got to reflect it myself as well as this staff. And I think these kids will reflect us as we go through this, and, getting to have interviews about Casey Pearce and this program and so forth. I've got to be able to kind of disperse that, positive that we're getting right now. But, the biggest thing is the reason we've got these opportunities is because of this group of kids and these coaches.
Coach, can you talk about the growing process that you've been through at Breckenridge? You didn't have quite as much success as you wanted the first couple of years, but obviously the kids bought into your system and believed in it, and you just kind of stayed the course until we've reached this point.
Yes, the things we've tried to instill is that you've got to come to work every day. And with COVID the first year, that's hard to say because the whole country was turned on its head, and consistency wasn't a norm. And we kept pressing, we kept talking that philosophy that you've got to show up and work and worry about us every day, top to bottom, from our sixth grade pre-athletics program through our high school athletic program. Just show up, because if you show up, you have a chance to get better. And the more days that you can stack together, the more opportunities you have for longevity and success and the things that go with it. So, we preach that, and we've tried to live it as a coaching staff, and I think our kids are reflecting it at this point.
And another big non-district matchup coming up with Cisco coming to town. Obviously, it's going to be a fun one for all involved. Just what are some thoughts on this matchup?
You know what you're going to get from Cisco. They've had nearly 2 decades of, extended runs in the playoffs and just a program success that Coach Brent West brought to it. I was at Stanford, Texas, whenever he took that job, and that was my last year in Stanford, was his first year. And to just see him develop that program and do the things he's done. We're trying to replicate that in Breckenridge, and getting to meet him this week, and Kevin Stinnett, who's followed him as the head coach. That's a big deal. And we know what we're going to get. We're going to get a team that's well prepared and ready to try to hit us in the mouth. And we better be able to return the favor.
Coach, talk about this District 3, 3AD1 that you are in. There's going to be some real challenges there. I know Jim Ned was the team everybody's talking about. They're 0-2, but they've been missing a bunch of players. 8, 9 regulars have missed those first 2 games. Once they get healthy, you're going to have them. You're going to have Iowa Park, obviously. This Vernon team that's much better than they were last year. An improved Clyde team. This is a rough league you're in.
Whenever we realigned, we didn't trade out of opponents that had talent. We lost Wall, we lost Early. Those were favorable opponents, and we traded into some guys that dropped down from 4A Division II into 3A Division I, and it's not going to be easy. Iowa Park, Vernon, both have been perennials in the past. They've got tradition, and they're trying to rekindle that. Iowa Park is a really good football team. Seeing them in the scrimmage against Jacksboro, they're going to be impressive. Jim Ned, Coach Fanning's going to get those guys straightened out and get those guys healthy, and they're going to be ready to go. And then Clyde, they're kind of where we were a year ago. Second year of Coach Dudgeon. He's got those guys playing hard, getting after people, and they're going to be ready to roll once the district race starts. And you can't count out Bowie. Bowie has improved. They played with Graham. They played with Bridgeport. They're going to have an opportunity to be a spoiler in our district as well. So what everybody better do is just concern themselves with themselves and try to get better every week going through this non-district schedule. And then it'll be interesting starting the first week of October how this all plays out.
And Coach, y'all, last question, but y'all are obviously off to a tremendous start. A lot of fun going on there. But I've yet to meet a coach that can't find room for improvement in areas to improve. So I guess just going forward, what are some keys to keeping this going, and what are some areas where y'all can keep getting better?
I think our execution offensively has got to continue to improve. Our progressions in the throwing game have got to continue to get better. Our run game, we've got to become a lot more physical. Right now we're occupying people and creating creases for those backs, but as defenses get better through the course of the season, we're going to have to really be tuned up in the offensive line to be ready to go. Defensively, we've got to continue our trend of being ultra aggressive and running to the football, staying on our feet, playing blocks, and tackling on our feet. And we'll figure it out as we go, dealing with different schemes. But we've got to keep that hunger going on the defensive side, and then we've got to continue to make progress in the kicking game. It gave us opportunities both weeks. I think we invest the right amount of time in the kicking game each week and each day. And at some point, that's going to be huge in this run that we're trying to make through 10 weeks and then hopefully into the playoffs. But right now, we've been pretty sound. We've made some plays, and we're going to have to continue to do that. That's going to be the difference in some ball games here as we go into the district race.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. We'll be keeping an eye on you, and we will see you at Buckaroo Stadium this Friday against Cisco. We will be out there for the game of the week.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see you guys, and let us know if we can help you.
All righty. Coach, thank you.
Coach, thank you.
Thank you.
And that was Breckenridge head football coach Casey Pearce. Been fun. It's, you know what, I always have, I don't know why, but I think I always feel like when Breckenridge has got it going, football season is more fun. It's one of those programs. If Brownwood's got it going, the football season is more fun. Having Brack playing as well as they are, it kind of draws interest from all over the area because it's just such a traditional program.
Yeah, no question. That program has had so much success traditionally, and even in the recent past. That's been a solid playoff team most years. but it's fun to see them back at this level because it has been a while, or potentially at this level. We've only seen 2 games so far, but with what they're doing so far, I mean, you're seeing a team capable of really doing some special things. So it's gonna be fun to see if they can keep it going. I think this Cisco game this week is going to be huge. There's going to be a ton of interest around that one for sure, and I think it'll be telling for both teams. But right now, if you're a Breckenridge fan, I'm sure you are, on cloud 9 right now, thinking about the possibilities, because this is so far, this is the best start they've gotten off to in years. So it's pretty fun to see kind of where this one goes.
And with that, it's about time to wrap up the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you that we've got 3 separate subscription packages here at bigcountrypreps.com. We got a monthly for $5 a month. We got a semi-annual 6-month subscription where we knock that price down to $4 a month. And then we've got an annual 12-month subscription where we knock that price down to $3 a month. $36 for a full year of Big Country High School athletic coverage.
We'd also like to remind you that if you see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, those are available for purchase. We have digital downloads available for $7, as well as some prints and keepsakes. So make sure you check those out. As you scroll through the site, you'll notice pretty quickly that we take a ton of photos from these games we're at. It's something we enjoy doing and something we're very proud of here at bigcountrypreps.com.
All Big Country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.